is nothing better during this week than to watch your peers come up here and present. So we have a full jam-packed hour today, but before they come up here, just a shout out to some really important people, some thanks. Boosters, thank you for supporting us. If your parents are booster supporters, make sure that you go home and say thank you, because this could not happen if it was not for them. Administration, and everybody else behind the scenes that makes this week work. A lot of work goes into this week. So, without any delay, or further delay, we have Nick Tater.
About 1 year ago, we brought home a sweet and loving puppy and named him Riley. Much like any puppy, he looks and plays like a regular dog, but something about him is different. No, he's not special or anything, he's just slightly demonic. Allow me to explain. He seemed normal when we first got him, but now we're realizing he somehow escaped hell and found his way into our house. I mean, what the hell am I supposed to do from here? Return him to the underworld? I can picture it now, Craigslist. One spawn of Satan for sale, will devour your soul. This dog does not give one single damn about you or life in general. Let me put this into perspective. We get Riley, we bring him home, feed him, take him for a walk, you know, the usual business. And then we put him outside on his brand new leash, which we had just bought. Probably see where this is going. He goes out there and decides to chew through the leash. After chewing through that, I suppose he was still hungry. So he went over to our fireplace and took a bite out of a piece of firewood, for dessert, of course. Now you might be thinking, nah, Nick, that just sounds like a regular puppy. That's not really that extreme. Yes, but it gets worse. Riley, being an Australian Shepherd and Husky mix, naturally has a considerable amount of energy. One day, he got too excited and started running around the house like crazy. My mom calls this the zoomies. She read it online, don't ask me. While trying to calm him down, the moron runs into the kitchen at full speed, slips on our tile floor, and crashes into his ceramic food bowls, splitting each of them in half. He cracked ceramic bowls in half. He cut his front paw open, but remember, we're dealing with a hellhound here. You think this foul beast feels pain? He gets his ball and starts running around again. At this point, the kitchen looks like a crime scene, but we get everything cleaned up and the coast is clear. Except it gets even worse than that. A month later, my mom comes home from getting some groceries, opens the door, and out runs Riley. Everything went in slow motion. The screams of my mom, tires screeching, and my little brother coming inside with an expression of shock and disbelief I've never seen before. Riley had gotten hit by an SUV. But Riley doesn't care. Instead, he gets up, barks at the car as if he's saying, "Excuse me, I was here first, you bow to me," and then proceeds to walk over to me, lies down. As if he didn't just get hit by a car going 25 miles per hour, his first thoughts are, whew, tiring day, I think I need a nap. Riley ended up walking away with just a sprained leg. So now that we've established the fact that he's immortal, he decided to take the next step in life, find a loving companion, someone who's similar to him, black and white, sleek, evil, a skunk. He gets skunked not once, but twice in the same month. Hey, props to him for having a committed relationship. At the end of the day, he's an idiot, and sometimes I'm an idiot with him, but we have each other, and that's what's important. Thank you. Next up is Emma Kadovich.
Hi, everybody. Shout out to Soccer Gym for attending. Thank you. Today I'm going to be reading my Commandant personal statement that I use for all of my college application essays. And additionally, both of my younger sisters were mentioned in this essay, and if you're wondering what they look like, they are both sitting back here. So take that what you will. Go ahead, you can open it. My sisters and I looked at each other. It was Christmas morning 2009. All of the presents under the tree had been opened, leaving a battlefield of wrapping paper on the floor that my dog was trying to eat. The only thing left was a large box that my parents had brought over. It wasn't wrapped, and the blank exterior gave no signs to what lay hidden inside. Using my dad's scissors, we tore into the cardboard, curiosity getting the best of us, and found inside a 2009 Apple iMac. The screen was an inch thick, making the computer the size of a small television. Now, this is for all of you, my mom enforced. There will be no fighting over it, or I will take it away. Our eyes widened. Before this, the only computer action we'd have was playing solitaire on my grandpa's computer, which couldn't connect to Wi-Fi and had the processing speed as slow as a snail. As we moved the computer to our upstairs guest room, my parents continued to let us know the rules. In addition to no fighting, no food was to go near the computer, we had to wash our hands before using it, and we couldn't go online after 8 p.m. All of these rules would eventually be broken, including the time that I got jelly stuck in the keyboard. But at that time, our little heads were nodding up and down at the speed of light. Our first computer. Little did we know what an impact it would have on our lives. On that computer, we spent hours messing around in a photo booth, creating webkins accounts, and Skyping our friends who lived down the block. But by far what we spent the most time using was iMovie. To this day, I'm still not sure how we discovered it, whether it was from a random search or the suggestion of a babysitter. All I know is that every free second from then on, my sisters and I created videos. I'm not just talking about videos in reference to 6 home movies. I'm talking about over 200 projects ranging from 2009 to 2016. We did full-scale productions, traveling to places like my mom's work and using a green screen to pretend that we were in Paris. My sisters and I were a team. I would film, direct, and edit most of our larger products, all while my 2 younger sisters would run around in costumes, trying their best to memorize scripts that I'd written for them. We had television series with multiple parts, skits for holidays, and news segments that talked about events in Africa and Europe. Little did my parents know, this computer would bond my sisters and I in a way that nothing else could have. All the time spent together would give us a lifetime of memories and inside jokes that we can still recite to this day. Additionally, what I love about these videos is how we accidentally documented the journey of us growing up. After my parents got divorced, life was too busy for them to sit down and scrapbook pictures of us throughout the years. But these videos show all of our developments, from the time that I got braces to when my sister chopped 8 inches of her hair off. And little did I know that this computer would change me in a way that I wasn't expecting. All of the videos that I shot and edited gave me a love for film. Not only has my experience on that iMac helped me get my first job filming and editing media for a manufacturing company, it has also influenced me to seek out a minor in film in college. A few weeks ago, my mom asked me to move the videos off the iMac so she could donate it. 10 years after we first received the cardboard box, the computer still sits on the desk in the guest bedroom, next to a laptop that is 1/4 of the size and 3 times as fast. When transferring the videos, I felt a twang of sadness in my gut. Yes, we still have the videos, but the computer was the device that took us to the place where nothing else matters. As we said goodbye to the iMac, my sister requoted a line from one of our favorite videos. Need to accessorize, so I'm giving you my maraca. I looked over at her and laughed. No one else would understand the context of the joke, but it didn't matter. We may not have the computer anymore, but its impact on us will forever be there. Thank you. Next up is Nathan Burrito.
Hi everyone, I'm Nathan Burrito. I'd like to begin just by giving a shout out to Mr. Cavalier's 8th period English class. So the piece I've written today I'd like to share with you is a poem called Summer Days. Take me back to those summer days, when the wind brushed my sails and gently kept me on course. When the air was not chilly, but gave me chills just thinking about it. And I remember many summers, because summer doesn't get lost. It doesn't get buried under the sheets of snow or washed out by pouring rain. The summer days are missed more the farther they drift away. Each summer day that is lost pushes the burden of the present ever forward. And somehow, even when the days seemed calmer, the light of the day grew longer, the air became warmer. Those summer days now feel increasingly shorter. But I'm growing, and so is everything around me, swirling together like the fall wind and merging together into one giant to-do list. I check off box after box so that next season's harvest is more plentiful, so that next season can be more of rest and play. But each season just leaves me more burdened with tasks to fill, except for the summer days. Because in the summer, I am free of worry, of responsibility, of obligation. In the summer days, I am just a child, and the world is my playground, my sanctuary, not my workplace tying me down. So I call for a return to the summer days, because I know that now I am locked into the present, that every task I have is one that I've committed to for the future, that I can't go back 5 years to the summer days when summer wasn't just warm weather and ice cream cones. Because then summer was every season, every moment full of innocence, freedom, and not an ounce of worry in the world. And that is the summer that I really long for now. Thank you. And the next speaker is Samantha Kadovich.
Shout out to Miss Marsh's 8th period class. I want you to imagine a close female you have in your life. Maybe it's a friend, girlfriend, mom, sister. Picture the way they smile, the way they look when they smile, the way they furrow their brow when they're upset. Got 'em? Good. Now I want you to picture them walking through their neighborhood after going out with some friends. See the way they practically glow after spending time with someone they love. But what's this? A man walks towards her, not on the same side of the sidewalk, but close. He inches closer and closer until they practically touch. Her lips quirk up in a polite smile. He smiles back. He continues to trail behind her as she walks. Her pace increases, yet he doesn't take the hint. His silence becomes comments and then yells until she has to run away to get away. Because he can't take the hint. They never can. This next girl could be anywhere. Maybe at work, maybe outside of her house picking up some mail. Two teenage boys drive past in their convertible. They drift past her as she bends down to pick up the fallen letter from her aunt. They catcall. They whistle. They chastise her for being so free with her body that she is okay wearing revealing clothing. They thank her for entertaining them. They drive on as if nothing happened. This next girl is in a classroom. She is presenting in front of some of her male classmates. Her stance is stern, her eyes serious as she conveys her message. The men around her talk over her words. Her presence means nothing to them. Her idea is foolish. But then a boy stands up and presents new ideas. Except they aren't new at all. They are her ideas. And all of a sudden the entire group is attentive. They grasp onto every single word he says with desperate attention. He gets an applause. He's praised and told, "Good job." She's given an F and told to try harder next time. This girl is walking in the hallways at school. She's minding her own business, stopping at her locker to drop off a book. As she continues on her way through the hallway, she stumbles into another careless person. She begins to fall, but her savior stops her with a strong arm on her waist. Her plentiful thank yous cause him to smile, but when she tries to move again, his arm doesn't budge. It instead grips her harder and begins to move further down her body. When she finally gets free, she angrily asks why he would do that. "It's just a joke," he says. "Can't you take a joke, you idiot?" He walks away laughing with his friends, acting as if nothing happened. I want you to picture another girl in another life. She stands atop a scale and glances down at the numbers beneath it. She's tired. Her clothes hang off of her frail person. She hates the numbers displayed at her. She is so sick of being told by her head and her anxiety and every other person in her life that she is not enough. Because people in her life have catcalled her and called her names, and she's forgotten how to love herself. I have this fear. One day I'm going to walk onto the street or into a building and be punished for being a woman. Maybe I'll be assaulted with words or physicality, but it's bound to happen one day or another. According to Hotline.org, on average, 24 people per minute are victims of rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in the United States. More than 12 million men or women over the course of a year. And this women ages 16 to 19 are the most likely to be sexually or verbally assaulted out of anyone. I don't know if it's because we seem more vulnerable, because we're the easiest to manipulate, and or even just because we are women. All I know is that I refuse to add to those statistics. I refuse to be yet another girl who is abused or violated in her life. Yes, I am a woman. I am a strong, amazing, beautiful woman, and so are all of you females out there. Join me in taking the next step, the step towards a future where we don't need to fear for our safety, where anyone can walk onto the street and be safe, no matter their sex, age, race, or religion. Because every single one of us is beautiful. We all deserve respect, and it's about time we get some. Thank you. Next up is Danny Kim.
Hello. I'd like to read a poetry collection I wrote in 3 parts titled Telescope, but before that, I'd like to shout out Ms. O'Donnell's 8th period AP Lang class. Okay. Part 1, Dust. Ships are never lost at sea. It is the harbor where they are killed, bedridden by an iron sickness, buried in a mossy casket, last rites muttered by a dejected sailor. Like dust I am lost in a cramped attic corner and dance weightlessly in the wind. Orphan son of man, raised from the dead, born like ash from a trampled cigarette, I am imprisoned among my gray siblings, a fragment of a stutter in a desert of rhetoric, and in isolation I'm observed. Panicked, raving immolation recognized as prodigal art, a brilliant hue streaked across the canvas of the stars. I decay as I am forgotten, bread without body, wine without blood, stale and dry among dust and ash. Death is found swimming like crocodiles in the eternity of a weary river flowing quietly with faint, lethargic echoes of murder absolved in the mouth of a yawning ocean. A comet shrieks across the universe, clad in the vicious glint of armor forged in brooding silence. Its radiance declares war against the stoic cosmos, the brutal edge of sharpened spears of light threatening to shatter the vault of heaven. Revolution pummels vengefully at the ripened flesh of nobility, bruising the sky in fractured colors that drip and spread, defeated pleas that echo fruitlessly, but are wept over centuries later. In a crowded museum, masterpieces of violence are framed and displayed lavishly like retired war horses, overlooked by motionless strangers and made into hobbling skeletons by zealous students. I shudder, staring incessantly stone body of a planet subjugated by the dominion of the sun, stagnating. Here I am decaying while waiting for you, a sleek figure perched upon a hill. You too gaze upon the stars, your hollow iris shivering with terrible volatility as it storms the temple of the dreaming sun. You and I resonate in harmony, a golden thread from two strings, a radiant comet from dust and ice. When our eyes pierce each other, we will reject eternity, melting, burning together in brevity, and the songs we whisper will be written in the constellations. I'm waiting for you to give icy flesh to my ashen bones as spring snow dampens the withered leaf. Together we will pierce the sky in a lonesome pas de deux. Okay, part 2, Telescope. In you, I see the tragedy of the stars. Your lips do not sing of love, of heroes, of triumph and return. Instead, they part to reveal the ferryman's drachma, the scattered petals of red hyacinths, bitter libations poured out by a damp, faceless crowd, and the farewell of a dimming funeral pyre. Why do you create tragedies? Why do your slender fingers weave the spilt blood of Patroclus and the death of 1,000 nameless men? I will never know the radiance that blinded Homer when he first peered into your eyes, for in you I hear the despair of a fading star, a faint melody of a breaking string, the sound that memories make when they are forgotten. If I were to gaze into your eyes once more, would they show me the fanfare of victorious cherubs and the eternal banquet of heaven where wine flows like the ichor of martyrs? Or would your eyes show me the abandonment of faith, the wretched wings of blighted angels, the feast of maggots and the last breath of a dying star? Drown me in the churning oceans of your eyes. Show me until I can see no more. Part 3, Moon. Even the moon sleeps. Dreams of crimson petals foretell the day you and I will meet under the shadow of the Milky Way. In an ailing tribal ritual, you dance around me in pained mystic circles, your silent feet treading on the graveyard of fallen meteors. Distance gives life to pensive musings. Will our dreams embrace, creating swirling galaxies, a winged bridge suspended by the fluttering of our hearts? What color will the carnations turn, drunk from the wine spilled from our passion? Your melancholy eyes are as opaque and enigmatic as the evening sky. Your weightless eyelashes blink away dry tears. Though you are tranquil like ash from a bonfire, the wind rips through your battered body like the specter of a vengeful maelstrom. Where are your thrashing oceans full of wrathful thunderstorms and snarling currents? What crushing ether, what dreadful nothingness beckons me to conjure the phantom seas whose ironclad waves conquered your petrified aridity? Your hollow body remains silent and stoic as an archaic sepulcher. If the answers are not found in the cries of your monochrome eyes or the howls of your extinct oceans, they must be found in the sleepless tugging, the rhythmic movements of your invisible fingers shaping the rising, falling breaths of the billowing tides of my heart, searching for a lost object of dignity. What has deserted you, leaving you barren, a parched shadow stumbling at the mercy of the apathetic void? Though I am here, you are so far, and your answers reach me, diluted by distance as wistful rain running through my fingers. The next presenter is Reese Kadovich.
Some people are afraid of spiders. Some are afraid of heights, and others are terrified of the dark. I, on the other hand, am terrified of throw up. It all started on May 13th, 2014. It was an average Monday, nothing seemed to be any different. I went to school like everything was normal. Then it was lunchtime. Everything was going just fine up until 5 minutes before the bell rang. Out of nowhere, I hear the horrible sound of someone gagging. I turn around and I see a student projectile vomiting his lunch. That was the moment when my life changed forever. Now, you might be thinking, how does one person vomiting change someone else's entire life forever? Well, I like to think of it as the moment when my inner anxiety was released. I get it, it sounds ridiculous, but that's the truth. I never really worried about much as a kid, and when I did, it was just silly things. But ever since that day, I have been terrified whenever I heard someone coughing in the bathroom or gagging because I thought they were gonna throw up. After school that day, I thought I was fine. Sure, I was a little grossed out, but I didn't suspect anything to be wrong. But the moment my mind had a second to think, I started to panic. I worried about him throwing up again or others throwing up too. So the next day, I threw up. Looking back, I am pretty sure I wasn't actually sick. My anxiety was so high that I made myself throw up. I somehow convinced myself that he got me sick. But I now know that the only reason I thought that was so I didn't have to see him throw up again. I stayed home the next day, and then the day after that. Then that night, my sister came home with news. He threw up again, she said. And just like that, it all happened again. My mind was spinning out of control. I felt like I was falling into an impossible situation that had no solution. I threw up again that night. My anxiety was getting worse and worse. I couldn't even think straight. And it wasn't until later that my parents realized something wasn't right. I was petrified, and I didn't go back to school for 4 more days. Finally, my mom had had enough. She came home from work one day and told me to get in the car. I asked, "Where are we going?" And she said, "We're going to go visit a doctor." It took me a while to realize that we weren't going to a regular doctor's office. We were going to a psychologist. She kept asking me questions about why I thought I was throwing up. I told her I just had some sort of flu. After countless appointments with that psychologist, she finally diagnosed me. She told me that I suffer from generalized anxiety disorder. They told me that in order to get better, I needed to ask for help. So I started going to therapy. Apparently, throwing up isn't the only thing I worried about. As I grew up, my anxieties also grew. I started to worry about anything and everything. I worried about getting good grades, and it started having a big effect on my life. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't hanging out with friends, and I wasn't my usually bubbly self. As the years went by, my mom kept noticing that I never really seemed happy. All that was on my mind were my constant worries. My mind never stopped. It was like the off switch in my brain broke. Finally, she decided that therapy wasn't enough. So, my therapist suggested that I should start a medication. The process of finding a medication for me took weeks. I had to take multiple tests to see what categories my anxieties fell under. Finally, they found one for me. According to my parents, they had seen tremendous progress. My anxiety still did spike at times, but it was getting better. As of right now, I have been on my medication for 502 days. Most people don't even notice that I have anxiety. Most people are ashamed of their mental illnesses, but I'm not. I have suffered from anxiety for almost half of my life, and so it represents my journey. It is a massive part of who I am, so I've embraced it. I guess in the end, I have that pile of throw up to thank. Yes, it did cause a massive issue on my life, but if that never happened, I probably wouldn't have gone to get help. Thank you. Next up is Abby Zimmer.
Shout out to Mrs. Enk's 8th period class. Okay, so Mamma Mia is a movie and a musical about a mom who had a fling with 3 guys and she got pregnant and she never knew which one was the father, and so the daughter grew up never knowing like which one her dad was, and so she invites all the 3 to her wedding, and so that's like the plot of that's the context of the the story. Okay. So this is a college essay I wrote for somewhere I applied, and the prompt is pick one woman in history or fiction to converse with for an hour and explain your choice. What would you talk about? Mamma Mia premiered in theaters 3 months before my mother passed away, and she was instantly obsessed. Ironically, her passing forced the story of single mother Donna and Hughie's daughter Sophie to align with my new family situation. A single parent raising a Hughie's daughter who had gone through life never really knowing a whole side of their family. Mamma Mia became a window into my mother's interests and values, and Sophie's curiosity with her missing father paralleled the emptiness I felt without a mother. A conversation with Sophie would allow me to express my gratitude for the gift of acceptance that her story gave me. Sophie, you allowed me to connect with my mother's perspective on the world. I knew that she loved you, so I could identify with you, knowing she would have similar ideals. Thank you for teaching me that family is what you create, not what you're born with. I learned to accept what I had lost and chose to be appreciative of the supportive and loving people I did have around me. Your story turned away the idea of a classic family dynamic and assured me that everyone has a unique history. You gave me an everlasting piece of my mother to look back at. And I am forever grateful for the lessons I was able to learn from your curiosity and acceptance. Thank you for connecting me with the person I've always wanted to know. Thank you. Next up is Cameron Pecknick.
Hello. Shout out to Miss Ang's 8th period English class. So this is a collection of poetry throughout my 4 years at Fremd. The first one is called Beauty and Femme. You have beautiful hair, you say, as you curl the locks in your hand, giving it a tug, looking at me, winking, smirking. I am a dog on a leash, and if you saw where else this hair grows, would you still call me beautiful? You could find it in my brows or in my lashes, if only you noticed it when I looked up at you. You'd find it in my arms, the little honey fuzz shining in the sunshine as you hold me in yours, too busy telling me how beautiful the hair on my head was to see it glisten on my forearms. You'd find it in my legs, curling around my calves and thighs like vines on the outside of a castle, a fence that leads to a garden. You only notice this hair when you graze past it on your way up my skirt unannounced. You tell me to close my legs, hide my legs, shave my legs. No, instead, shave your legs but keep them open for me, only for me, keep them open for me. And then you whisper, you're beautiful, when my legs finally run soft. Funny how you thought my hair was so beautiful such a short time ago. You're beautiful, baby. Close your legs. Don't you see I love you? Open them for me. I'm just taking care of you. Listen to me. I love you. I love the feel of you. I love the scent of you. I love the look of you. I love the sound of you. You're beautiful, but only certain parts of you. The second one is called Therapy. 1, I need space. These are the words Dad taught me when I was young because 2, you and I fight a lot, and 3, my vomit often chokes my words. So 4, he gave me an escape so I could communicate with you, Mom. 5, the anxiety, you prayed and prayed would not be there. So 6, God made you invisible to it. And it feels good to be looked at by you the way you look at everyone else. 7, except 8, on the cold days where my breath can't create the space you prayed we wouldn't need. And 9, I close off like I used to. Knowing that 10, the only way I can keep you from crying is 11, pretending like you don't exist for just a little while. Because 12, you take up the space reserved for my thoughts and my fists and the art they create together. While 13, I learned to accept that my anxiety and my love cannot grow together. Because 14, 2 different trees cannot grow from the same roots, so instead I try 15 to count down like my therapist said. So 14, I'm sorry that when you ask me how to help my anxiety, I tell you 13 that I just need to be alone. And that this time, just like any other, 12, Dad will stand by you and remind you that 11, you're still a great mother, and I wish I could tell you myself, it's just that 10, my words are saturated with vomit, and 9, you'll want to clean the mess, but 8, my fists and thoughts created this mess, so 7 is their mess to clean, and 6, I'm glad God made you blind to what poisons my soul, because 5, it's taught me what love will look like when it's not hesitant of the consequences that follow, and 4, I'm sure that trees can grow more roots, so I will see you in a few years, or 3, perhaps even sooner, because as I calm down, I realize that 2, my weakness is my strength, and there's no shame in shouting that 1, I need space. There's one more. The last one is called A Poem for Peace, and I wrote this for a competition. When you ask me where it lies, I will press my lips closed like women do. It lies in their breath, I conclude, so my breath will call it home too. My tight smile asking you to believe them and me. When you ask me where it lies, I will point to the sky where snow falls. I count to 3 again and again, meaningless, but there it lies, I promise you. Chaos on a continuum is nothing but order, I whisper between the snowflakes and my 1s, my 2s, my 3s. Don't you see it is with us now? My breath churns out the meaningless, but in both my breath and the meaningless it lies, I promise you so. When you ask me where it lies, I will ask you what you know about the rib cage of a child, how tree roots find each other before death, or perhaps the way the snow cannot replace itself when too much is lost. It lies in your answer, I promise you. I will tell you that the absence of water only makes roots dig deeper, and that is your answer, because the soil is its destruction, and yet there it lies, because lack of need leads to need for, and so perhaps when you ask me where it lies, I will point to all the places it doesn't, and maybe then you can see where it should. Thank you.
What's poppin'? Okay. I wrote this when I was, during winter break, when all I did was just sit in front of my computer screen and do nothing. And I was like, hey, I should write about this because this is really depressing. Okay, this is titled Icarus Reborn. Wax wings fold like cards as a boy with crystal eyes falls into the scornful sea, plucked from the noon sky like a sour green grape and thrown into the glass ocean, shattering the surface, creating many bleeding mirrors to look into. Yet long after his tremendous splash he remains, a lesson to be learned, a story to be told, a head to shake as we lament his hubris. We love to tell tales of fools who burn among the stars but bury and forget those decaying among the sands. I sit slumped like a rusty lamp on my desk, dead carbon eyes, staring focused, certain at nothing at all, gouged, doused, arsenized by the imposter light emitting from my blue computer screen. Like a thin night candle, my wax dwindles, pathetically, the feeble wick anticipating its silent landing. When it is laid in the ground, there will be no splash of reckoning, no splashing, no sparkling instance of clarity seen for the last time through crystal lenses. While the sea sings songs, wax sits mute and leaves your mind to wander fruitlessly, thinking silently out loud, heavy murmurs conjuring wrinkled scraps of white paper. Tonight the candle is unlit and the phantom sobbing of the tides can be heard from a distance like white paint on a white canvas, leaving a faint warmness, a tired echo of ancient vigil lights snuffed out, a strange, funny prophecy mourning the expired tale of the fallen hero.
I'm back. I wrote this last period, so hopefully it goes the way I think it will. We don't know. You are so strong, and you lie awake at night wondering just how many more times you have to lie awake at night until you feel like you are strong. But you are strong. And I know no one has told you in some time, so let my breath be the first, although I wish it wasn't, when I say to you that you are strong. Whether you bite your tongue until your mouth is red or use your voice until your throat is too swollen to be grasped by the hands of others, you are strong. Whether you stick your arm out the window in a snowstorm to remember that sensation only lasts a little while, or place your hands to the edge of a pot to remind yourself that yes, you can in fact feel after all, you are so strong. Whether the spaces under your eyes look like muddied pillowcases or your hands tuck themselves under your arms, fitting where they should as you tell yourself that you should really sit down, you are strong. And so my breath will create those words for you, and I hope you hold on to them as though they were more, because the dirt you stand on isn't good at much, so I'm not sure how long it will be until you hear that. You remind me of the scent left behind when someone leaves the room, or the taste of black coffee on the tongue of a curious child. You remind me of the wind because it kisses gently but tears a face when it has to, and when I say that you remind me of the wind, I mean it as a compliment. I want you to gleam with happiness because to me the wind is strong, and I don't know when else the world will tell you that.
Let's hear one more time for our student presenters. Okay, so we have a little more time. I have a question for them that we'll see if they can all have a chance. And I apologize, I did not prompt you with this beforehand. But something I'm sure that we're curious about is that upon knowing that Writers Week is going to happen, in the writing process, you start off with a blank page, right? White page, all the way to presenting. So if you could talk us through that process of a blank page to the spoken word, what does that look like for you? Or would that look like for you in this process? Who would like to start? And we'll just work, everybody get a chance to get it.
So I think the thing that I do the most is I tend to, obviously last year and this year, both of my pieces were more on like the comedic side, and I tend to, present it that way. But I've also written, very, very dark and very emotional things, and there's that side that you can take. I could have told this story and say like, hey, my dog got hit by a car. That's really sad at the end, right? But no, I turned it away, and I added a spin on it, and I turned it into this, comedic series of like, hey, my dog's an idiot, but he somehow survived all this stuff, and that's why I love him, because he makes me laugh and he's goofy. So for me, I think it's all about like taking an idea and turning it into something that's presentable and something that's enjoyable to an audience.
Why me? So I know there's this implication that when you're writing poetry, you have to look inside yourself for something deeper, and then go from there. Honestly, I came up with the idea for my thing while I was procrastinating. I was supposed to do like physics homework or something, but then I was like, hey, I don't want to do that, so why don't I just open up a random Google Doc and like start thinking about stuff. So initially I thought of an idea of basically like enlargement, like you have a small piece of dust like you see in the first part of my poem, and then you go to a telescope, which is the medium, and then you go to the moon and the sun and all the other things until you reach something very, very large and supposedly grand. But I was like, hey, that's a cool idea, why don't I write it? But then, and I didn't really think about what I was like thinking and feeling. But I mean, eventually, the stuff where I'm supposed to talk about like my emotions and stuff kind of fit in place there, and I ended up with what I had, and I don't know, it's kind of just be like that.
For me, it would probably be, I have to first decide how personal I want the story to be. So I first decide, is it either like personal to me, or is it some kind of like outside story which I just have a little bit of information on? And I find that if it's actually relatable to me, then it's actually a little bit harder to write, because then I have to take into account like all these things that happen, and I have to find out a way to somehow relate them back together. But that's definitely the first step I try to take.
So trying to figure out what I wanted to write my personal statement on for college applications, I wrote 6 different essays, trying to figure out which one I liked the best, mostly because my mom told me to. I wrote all 6 of them, and this one was just the one that I thought really like represented me the best, and that people at the colleges I was applying to could connect with the most.
I just wrote I wrote about stuff that I had seen happening and like heard happening and like my own personal experiences, and then I just like wrote them down, and like I had like multiple different like drafts of it, like more severe, more like less severe, and I just like constructed it into like what I liked and like what everyone could relate to. So I actually got the idea for my freshman year English class. We got the assignment to write a memoir about like whatever the biggest like event in your life was, and I like thought about it for a while, and I was deciding between like a few things, but like overall I felt like this was the thing that shaped me the most in life, so I decided to write about it.
For me, it was just January 1st, because that was the deadline for the college app. But I knew that like I didn't really want to write about like a historical figure, because I knew that like everyone else who applied to that college would do that, and so I wanted to pick something that like I had a personal connection to. So that was, I guess, where it came from.
I think for me, like one of the main things is that, well, I get a lot of like my prompts from competitions that I enter, like outside of school and stuff, so that always helps, like being kind of told what to write about. But then other times I get words stuck in my mind and I have to wait, like I'll write them down in a notebook. Like I had the word coffee stuck in my head, and like I don't know, it just doesn't really make sense. But like so then I wrote the line about the coffee, and then kind of wrote the rest of the poem that I just wrote today about that. So like that, yeah.
All right, that concludes our second day. Before you leave, reminders, we have these beautiful posters.